Okay, I'm going to start out by just giving a general overview of the Visual Studio 2015 Community IDE. I will also be using ReSharper 9, which you can get with a student license. Be sure that you install Community 2015 first. The default settings should be fine since we're only going to be using C#, and ReSharper, after you install Visual Studio, should detect that you have 2015 installed and give you the option to install there. You only need the default ReSharper package that's checked. You don't need all the ultimate stuff. That is, you don't need .memory or .trace. You just need the ReSharper program itself. So all of the defaults on the install should work just fine. Fair warning, you might need up to 10 gigabytes across all drives. I think it says 6, but you might need more than that in my past experience, unless they've cleaned that up since I last installed this. So without further ado, we'll continue with the Visual Studio Community IDE, and we'll try and get you comfortable using it as a productivity tool. So okay, when you first open up 2015 Community, it should look kind of similar to mine. If it's not exactly the same, it's no big deal. So we're going to start. We're going to make a basic, just console application Hello World project. So I'm going to go up in the top left to File. I'm going to select New and Project. Alright, so by default it brought me down to my installed stuff. You might have C# on the outside here. But anyway, you want to be in Visual C#, and we're just going to do a console application. So in the name, we'll do Hello World. The solution name, by default, takes on the project name. A solution can have multiple projects. Oftentimes, if you're doing something small, you're only going to have one project inside the solution. So that's why, by default, it just slaps the same name down here. And you can put this somewhere else if it's more convenient for you. I recommend always having create directory for a solution checked, otherwise it's just going to dump everything on, in my case, the desktop. This creates a Hello World directory for your solution, and this will create a Hello World project directory as well. So okay, I'm going to click OK here. We'll wait as it creates the project. Alright, very good. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Hopefully we're not going to need too much space here. Okay, so this is what a normal C# program will look like when you first boot it up. Now I'm going to go step by step and I'm going to explain everything here. Number one, if these aren't grayed out, see how this is kind of a gray and this is kind of a white? If these aren't grayed out, you probably don't have ReSharper installed correctly. Make sure up here that you have ReSharper installed, and make sure that when you go to Help and Licenses, Help License Information, it should tell you that you're properly licensed, educational use since we're using the student license. We don't want it to be on the trial because then we're going to have to deal with the licensing later. You should be able to register with your edu email address and do everything through that. Okay, so let's, from a Java developer's perspective, explore this. Actually, before we do that, one last thing. Let's show you how to set up the environment for a console application. So first of all, we want to make sure, I like having line numbers on, so in order to do that, we go to Tools in the top, Options at the very bottom, then we're going to scroll down to Text Editor, expand that, and I like doing this for all languages, but you can make this language specific if you want to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand all languages, and there should be a line numbers here. I'm going to check it so it applies for all languages. I'm going to hit OK, and now I have line numbers. Lovely. Second, we want to make sure that we have this error list at the bottom here. For some reason this isn't on by default, even though it's very useful. So we're going to go to View, and if you ever don't see one of the windows that I have up, like if you don't have the Solution Explorer, maybe you accidentally close it. If you ever don't see something like that, go to View, and you can probably open it from there. So if you look down here in the third or fourth blotch at the top here is error list. You can also do Control-W-E to open it, and that'll open the error list at the bottom here. Note that you can customize where everything is in Visual Studio, so if I want the error list, on the side here, I can add it to the side like that. I like the way that it has it on the bottom here. Oop. It's a little fat. Oh well, that's something that I'll worry about later. Okay, so this is where all of your compiler errors and warnings are going to be, so that's why we want to make sure that it's here. So okay, very first thing, we can run this program. This program compiles. Whenever we want to run a program, we hit this start button up here. This will build and compile and run the program. Now, this isn't going to stop and wait for you to close the program. You see, the program just does nothing. It just runs from main and it ends. So let's talk about the elements of this program from a Java perspective. So using statements, these are much like the import statements in Java. You can kind of think of these as having a dot star after them once you get beyond, the basic system qualifier. So in system.collections, for example, .generic, this has things like the list class and interface. So we don't need to import .list individually. We don't need to import the list and the queue and the dictionary. This will do all of it for us. So in Java, this is basically equivalent to saying this. Note that we can't do .star, so we can't just do system.star and import everything that exists in system. Note that these using directives aren't exactly the same as using directives in C++. That is to say, well, actually, excuse me, they are like the using directives in C++, so I don't have to qualify things with system.collections.generic if I want to use it, or system.text, or for example. So we're just going to do a hello world, so we're going to do console.writeLine. And this is just like system.out.writeLine in Java. So we'll just put in hello world, just like we would in Java. Control S to save, and I'm going to hit the start button to run it. So notice that it just printed this to the screen and then exited the program. So what we're going to do for our programs is we're going to do console.readKey. And this would return, console key info, but we don't really care about what was read. We just want it to stop. So if we hit start now, you'll see we have hello world in our terminal. And if we hit any button, enter, there we go, it'll close out. So okay, very good. That's a hello world program. And I think that might be beyond the YouTube time limit already. So we'll continue in the next video.